Did you see the little puppet up there? The little Freud puppet up there on the top of the bookshelf.
Oh, yes. Now
You
I
let
do
your
see.
patients hold it when they're feeling insecure?
Oh, no. I go in there and say, I go up there and say, why do you hate your... You know.
Whenever you're ready.
Oh, we're rolling, yeah.
So I went to this evening once at the Paley Center. It was quite a number of years ago because Larry Gelbart has sadly been gone for a while. Creator of the TV show MASH and a billion plays. The book For Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. He and Mel Brooks, who had first met on Sid Caesar's show of shows in the 50s, were doing an evening and a talk. And then at the end of the talk, there was a Q&A, as there always is. And a guy got up and he said, can you illustrate the difference between a joke and wit? And Mel Brooks took a glass of water and poured it over his head. And he said, that's a joke. And there was a long pause and the guy said, so what's wit? And Larry Gelbart said, wit is dry.
It's a great line.
Speaking of which.
She's recovering.
The structure of a joke versus the structure of a screenplay. Similar, different?
Well, can I tamper with the question and
Sure.
edit it a little?
Please do.
It's the way I'd like to see that question is looking at the structure of a joke and then how do you work it into a screenplay?
Okay.
Because jokes have to meet two criteria to work in a screenplay. They have to either advance a story or they have to totally come out of character. If they don't meet those two criteria, excise them. They're expendable. You don't want to keep them. So that's always the rule. And I've seen writers with tears in their eyes saying, this is so funny, I hate to let this go, but it's not coming out of character. It's not moving things along. I gotta dump it. So you have to have those two elements in there.
Is there a joke quota? I mean, all kidding aside, like do
There used to be.
Okay. Yeah.
But I don't think there is anymore. I mean, I hope there isn't. There's two shows on Netflix. One's called The Ranch, and I forget the other one. It just came on. It's with Kathy Bates, and it's about a woman who owns a pot store. And they're both like those sitcoms in the 80s, some of which I wrote for, where it was like joke, 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 joke. Oh, look, you're wearing, what was the one in The Ranch that I just thought, oh, this is so old-fashioned, where he's wearing Uggs. This guy who used to be a football player is wearing Uggs, and the parents everybody's making jokes about the Uggs. It has nothing to do with the story. They just are looking for jokes. They're shooting in front of a live audience. And someone told us this morning that those two shows are not doing that great on Netflix. And it doesn't surprise me. It's really old-fashioned. There was a rule, 3 jokes a page when I started. And that could be, and lots of times the producer would give you the joke. One joke I had to put in a script was, oh, look at Barbie Cantrell on a beach, almost wearing that bikini. Having nothing to do with the story. Terrible joke. Not even really a joke.
Elliot Showman told us a really nice story. He said, I was working on Maude, and Maude was a very sophisticated comedy where jokes are very difficult to come by because the characters weren't very broad. And he said, we had our office right across the hall from the All in the Family. And he said the characters there were so broad that you could always get a joke if you needed it. So he said, we'd be there till 7 or 8 every night, and at 5 o'clock, they all left. And they said, if they needed a joke, they would take Archie Bunker and they'd give him a malaprop. So he'd say, Edith, I think I got a hernia. I got to see a groinecologist. And you'd have the joke because he's just such an easy character to write jokes for. And if again, I keep saying my favorite sitcom is still Big Bang, and those characters are so well drawn, and the characters have so many traits that are identifiable that there's always a joke when you need it. There's always something about one of the characters that's going to fit. So whether it's a short joke or an OCD joke or an autism joke or a foreign language joke. There's always something, because the characters have so many traits that you can come out with jokes about.
Anything to add?
No, I'm not really a very good joke writer. I've never been. My humor comes out of.
But he's a very good joke critic when we talk.
I mean, jokes have never been my strength. Characters, I've written them, and but they'll usually come out of what a character's doing, and so I wouldn't really consider them the kind of jokes that Peter's talking about. I love jokes. I don't like jokes, and I studied with Danny Simon, who said never set up a straight line to accommodate a punchline, and that's what kind of annoyed me about The Ranch, because they had all these wonderful actors in it, and instead of using them to develop character, they were just giving them joke after joke after joke, and it just seemed kind of old-fashioned to me. But
it's kind of when you see
I
the
admire
punch
people who
coming,
can write
it's
good jokes.
not a good joke. There's an old saying in boxing: you never see the punch that knocks you out. That should work for jokes as well.
But I think that, again, to go back to where we started with this, with jokes versus wit, I think, one of my biggest influences is Noel Coward. Noel Coward did not write jokes. Noel Coward wrote situations that were inherently funny. Two people who are on their second honeymoon, who go out on their respective balconies in the south of France, and who do they run into but their ex-spouses? And everybody has stolen that situation. Private Lives was the play, but at the time it was kind of risque. And of course, what are they going to do? They're going to fall back in love and fight and break up and get married and break up and get married, and that was the premise. But you can see that really witty stuff would come out of that, but very few jokes. I think he had, he had jokes like, I'm going to butcher this, but it was like, and because one of them had been on a trip, how was Egypt? Very, very dry. That's not a joke. That's wit. And how were the plains of Spain? Very, very wet. That kind of thing. That's not really joke writing. Peter's talking about constructed jokes. If you say, but what's nice about that, and I butchered it a little, but the nice thing in the Noel Coward example is there's a rhythm, just like in a joke. There's a setup and a payoff. If you say very, very wet and you don't say very, very dry, people will unconsciously be waiting for it. And if they don't hear it, they'll be disappointed. They may not know why. One of the movies that works great for me is the first and the second Back to the Future, because everything, by the way, this is what structure is. Oh, I'm glad I got a new question. May I?
Great. Oh, please do. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and this comes a lot from my childhood and my training. My dad and his friends always said, all structure really is set up and payoff. Some things you set up and pay off quickly. Some things you set up halfway through a script and pay it off later. But if you set up something and don't pay it off, people are going to notice that the film or the play...
Something was missing.
Something's missing. So really, people for a long time have overcomplicated the idea of structure. Really, all it comes down to is setting up and paying off. And if you don't do that, you don't have something properly structured. So I give a lot of...
the setup is all conflict.
For example, I set up the mother moving in with her daughter, and then I don't pay off that something bad, funny, or good funny is going to happen. I haven't written a whole premise. I haven't written a whole story.
If they get along well, it's really boring.
Right. Well,
unless the two of them have to unite against something else.
As opposed to, well, Charlie Peters has always said, Charlie's an old friend of mine, but he's always said is like, one of the hardest things to explain to students, Charlie taught at USC for many years, and for us briefly, but he said the hardest thing to explain to a student is, because in life we all want to get along. We don't want conflict. We want to have a nice, easy, but that makes for a dull drama.
He gave us a great quote in the book. He said, the hero of every movie wants the script to end on page 2.
Right. Jack Black does not want to go to Skull Island and find King Kong. That's the last thing he wants to do.
What were you going to say about Back to the Future? You were saying something.
Oh, yes. Short-term memory loss is a bitch, right? That everything they do in Back to the Future, everything they set up, everything, and they went through like 20 drafts before they shot. Everything they do is paid off. Everything. So you feel really satisfied when you come out of that movie. You may not know why. Every joke they set up is paid off.
No loose ends.
Yeah. And that's really great writing. And so, and you're waiting for the sequel because at the end of the movie, he's like, where we're going, he takes the Stinking Badges line from, what's the famous movie?
Sierra Madre.
Sierra Madre.
Treasure of
And
the
he
Sierra
says,
Madre.
roads? He says, what about, you're backing up? What about roads? He says, roads? Where we're going, we don't need no stinking roads. And it's right out of another movie. And it sets you up for you have to see that sequel now. But the third one, don't watch that. It's the Western. It's not very good.